Ladies and gentlemen, guns and droids, we need to have a serious conversation. I've been seeing this conversation a lot lately popping up. People want to know my feelings on the state of the game. And more importantly, I've seen a trillion videos being recommended to me. Is Galaxy of Heroes dying? Oh no, I spent my grandma's life savings and can't die already. Get up, stop complaining. We're gonna have a serious conversation. Long story short, I guess, depending on what you define as dying, are you gonna be the open philosophical one, where you're dying the second you're born? Ooh, that's dark. Or are you someone that defines dying as the game's gonna die like in the next month? If you're taking the latter there, no, I don't think this game's going anywhere anytime soon. However, I think metrics would suggest the game is on a downward turn, but they can probably pull that back up if they listen to some feedback and feel what the people need in this game. And we're going to talk about that. Let's get over and have ourselves a little bit of a conversation, shall we? So, just even today, right before, I was compiling all this stuff here, this kind of showed up and I'm like, okay, I think people are kind of feeling this collective sentiment about Galaxy of Heroes. Burnout, and we've seen a few content creators that stepped away recently. We saw, for example, Sarah, and then recently Gerbil, another content creator, not leaving the game, but pulling things back. Time commitment in this game is kind of at an all-time high, but are you really enjoying the time? Some people love their conquests and territories. Cool, that's great, but I think that's more of the exception rather than the rule. And we see posts like this, or anyone else feel that more game time I have to do, the more I realize the gameplay is pretty boring. I'm still the fact here that if it wasn't for Grand Arena, I don't know if Galaxy would still be around. For sure, not nearly as successful or being able to maintain its mobile gaming presence it's had over the past couple years if it was not for Grand Arena. That's just me. I can't say it's 100% factual, but I feel that's factual. But we're going to actually look at more factual things out there. Number one, let's start breaking down a lot of the concerns that the game is it's dying. I'll give you an example of what a dying game looked like. Keyword looked like, past tense, we're going to discuss. And people didn't believe me back then. I'm not raising the alarms. I'm more raising the alarms that the game's on a downward turn. But anyways, first off, in case you guys don't know, Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes is the most successful Star Wars mobile game of all time. Dare I say, especially when we look at the EA portfolios I'm going to pull up here, it's probably the most profitable Star Wars game in all of Star Wars history. It's kind of bold stuff there, right? It's pretty crazy. As we see here, this is an older article, but back in 2021, Galaxy has made up 98% of all revenue of the last 5 Star Wars mobile games. It's probably looking at, for example, Star Wars Commander, Star Wars Force Arena. There's been a couple other little things out there. Galaxy is successful, pure and simple, especially in a mobile gaming environment where it's competitive. This says a lot right there. Furthermore, in case you guys didn't know, I only tweet on occasion, and this one kind of caught my attention where recently EA kind of had their investor day. They're talking and bragging about, Star Wars games and, how successful they are. And they said that they've made over $5 billion from Star Wars games. Funny enough, they didn't really give credit to where credit's due. And that's that majority of that revenue, at least half, I would say, is generated by Star Wars Galaxy. And I get that maybe they don't want to talk about it because if you're a AAA publisher, it would be a little awkward that the only way you made money, real money, is through a mobile game. So I get that maybe they didn't want to talk about that. But nonetheless, this again shows that even when it comes to EA Star Wars games, this game has made at least all the same revenue if you combine all the other EA Star Wars games. And it just equals Galaxy Heroes at the minimum. Galaxy Heroes, I would think, is actually exceeding all the previous EA Star Wars games, if you're looking at revenue metrics, that is. So let's take a look at revenue metrics. I just want to kind of set the groundwork that this game is highly successful for Star Wars, at least. Not the biggest mobile game of all time, but very successful. Even when you look at mobile gaming in general, it's just not the biggest. Well, sometimes we think that Galaxy Heroes is the biggest mobile game. There are far bigger ones, but still very successful. Being able to even get past 1 billion revenue is a big deal. It really is. So let's actually start looking at some more generalized metrics. And actually, I want to show one other little metric here before we go to more generalized stuff. This is a more recent thing. Lightspeed bundles are a big hit in Galaxy Heroes. What? No way, Arnold. Yeah, but it's not really a permanent source of maintaining high revenue, but they like it's like a little bit of Jawa just shooting it through the vein. When they need to, they can interject a little bit of Lightspeed bundles into the blood of Galaxy Heroes. A lot of revenue, as we see May 4th of this year, just in like one day or whatever. On May 4th, they made $1 million, which is 5 times the normal revenue they get on a daily basis. So again, the game can make money when it needs to. But now let's turn the page and kind of talk about, I would say, concerning things for the game. And if you're someone that has more of a larger view of what dying means, you might have some argument to roll with here. Let's go take a look at it. So I want to kind of show this first. This is Sensor Tower data, which it's kind of like the best public facing data we have, especially on mobile games. This only goes up to 2019, but I kind of want to show first off the trend. And it's going to really show how explosive the beginning era of Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes really was. 216 million in 2016, 254 in 2017. Spoiler, that's the peak. 2017 was the peak of Star Wars Galaxy Heroes revenue. I feel like even the player base at that point as well, it was highly successful. I always called 2016 to 2018 the golden years of Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. Now what I want to show is something that shows us a little bit more data. However, I think it's missing I think it's missing Google Play data. This is coming from Statista. Obviously, this is not the total revenue because we know by 2019 or wherever it was, they made $1 billion. And well, this does not total $1 billion. I think they might be missing the Android revenue, whereas Sensor Tower has both of them. But you can see that it follows the same trajectory. We peaked in 2017 and then we started going down. You can kind of see the same thing. Peaked in 2017, started going down to 2019. But this shows the overall trend of Galaxy of Heroes, where, as you can see, 2020, it kind of bounced back up. Now, around this 2018-2019 period, people saw that downward, that downward trend. People were like, is the game dying? Well, obviously no, because we're still here, unless this is just a figment of our imagination right now. I don't know, maybe. Anyways, but you see the game bounced back in 2020. However, there's a couple things we need to take in context. Number one, 2020 was, they pushed a lot of characters, a lot of Galactic Legends. Of course, that has something to do with it. I know it's been a minute, but there was this thing called COVID that I heard you guys had at Planet Earth, and a lot of you guys were kind of forced to stay inside for who knows how long for a while. And we saw this in general in other means out there, other video games, streaming services. Even myself, as we're going to see I'm going to show some of my own data and see how it kind of correlates to Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes a little bit. 2020, 2021, a lot of online services, streaming, gaming, they hit an all-time peak. And you can't expect to always hit that peak unless you force people to be locked in their houses forever and they have nothing to do except play games and watch content out there. So there's a lot of things going on to maybe why we saw an increase in 2020, 2021. I think, the whole COVID situation probably had some sort of influence on the revenue of Star Wars Galaxy Heroes. We saw similar things in Marvel Strike Force where during COVID, there was an increase in revenue even for other games. So again, it's not just Galaxy of Heroes, but now we kind of get to, the post-COVID world, and we see this a lot even outside of Galaxy of Heroes, where I don't know about Galaxy Heroes. We're gonna actually show some job postings, so they're obviously hiring more people, as we're gonna talk about. But in general, inside the video gaming world, it's kind of a mess right now. You've been seeing a lot of video game studios closing, lots of people getting laid off and looking for work, and it's very difficult right now in general, just the financial market for video gaming in totality. And a lot of that has to do with the post-COVID world. People aren't spending as much. People aren't spending as much time at home playing video games, watching streaming services. So a lot of this is even outside the grasp of Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. But even beyond that, we're seeing that post-COVID world, revenue's starting to drop. But then we get into 2023, and it's hitting a pretty low point that we haven't seen. Besides 2015, 2023 was the lowest revenue year for Galaxy Heroes. And now we're in 2024. This is the first half of 2024. And it's looking like it's going to continue the downward trend. Even if we double that number for, assuming the rest of the half of the year, it would still come short of 2023. So we're seeing consecutive losses or less revenue every single year after year after year after year. Now you might be saying, oh, maybe because it's missing revenue from the EA app. The EA app was more of a second half year type of thing here. That might be an argument to have for the more recent, finer points of metrics. Some people are on the EA client spending money. That's me. I don't really spend money on mobile anymore. In the more recent months, I spend it on the app. It's more convenient, and I do get a little bit of a discount at that point. But here's the thing. This, in the early years, there was the beta, but not many people were in the beta at that point. But I digress. Here's what I want to show you guys. The game is on a downward trend financially. Even with the downward trend, the game is still making a lot of money. It's still making a lot of money. And this isn't a very expensive game to upkeep. This isn't like a AAA game where you need tons of crazy live service content. As we're gonna maybe talk about here in a moment towards the end, about maybe this feeling of dread, boredom, I don't know, monotony, chores. They kind of set up a system in Galaxy of Heroes where all they have to do every 2 weeks or so, they release a character, and the character just naturally goes into these different homes. You have your territory wars, grand arena. You got your, for example, conquest, and you got yourselves. What did I miss there? Did I say territories, territory battles? A majority of that content is just content that kind of just updates itself over time. The developers don't really need to create unique stuff. The only thing they really kind of do uniquely every couple months is a new raid system. Okay, it's not as, you know, in depth as some of the previous raids we've had in the past. And also when you look at conquest, yeah, they gotta just basically change the feats up a little bit, but otherwise, a majority of the content in this game, it's kind of self-sustaining, self-maintaining when it comes to this game. So they're not putting a lot of effort into this game to keep it up running, except adding new characters, which I'm fine. I like my new characters, but we'll talk more about the content stuff later on. Here's what I want to show you, a few more things before we start looking at even my numbers here. And then some other things I want to kind of point out, even of Star Wars in general. You know, here's, for example, the more recent data for Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, where, as we see, at least from Sensor Tower, we're seeing that they made 3 million on iOS and 3 million on Android. I will say, since this is metrics coming from last month in September, there's probably a good chunk of revenue that's on PC only. I would maybe say another mil or two. So again, the game's probably making 7-8 million a month lately, and still, again, that's a lot of money for a game like this. So again, I'm not concerned the game's going anywhere anytime soon. The question is, though, you know, are they going to do something? Because it is a continued downward trend here. But now here's what I want to show you guys. And the other day, we posted a video talking about, you know, the Kyber squish going on in Grand Arena, right? I want to show this first because this shows kind of a rough estimate of the active players that we have in Galaxy of Heroes. About, let's just round it up, 300,000 people are playing this game. Now, I'm going to show you my metrics because I feel like it kind of correlates a little bit with Galaxy of Heroes here. And the reason why I bring that up, because I started playing this game pretty much as it came out. It came out November 2015. Well, I guess beta was 2015 October. I started playing December 2015. And I started making videos in July 2016. So my channel has been with the game for as long as it's been out, for the most part. And when you have 290,000 people, 300, let's round it up, this is gonna be kind of interesting. So I'm gonna show you my analytics, and this isn't me complaining about my channel. Again, I'll show you this. You guys can mull over it, and I want to give some context here in a second. First off, I want to say, playing Galaxy of Heroes, doing anything that I'm doing right now on YouTube has been an absolute privilege. And it's been one of the greatest joys of my life. But here's the thing, I don't fully rely on YouTube. I have other things that I'm investing my time in, my efforts, my talents and whatnot. I keep treating YouTube as the fun hobby as it was when I first started up, and all this accidentally started. And furthermore, looking at subscribers isn't really the greatest metric for looking at a channel, because you can find amazing channels out there that maybe don't have a lot of subs, or you can find channels that have a lot of subs and they're not really getting a lot of views. So, but the reason why I'm bringing up subscribers here is because it kind of shows, I think, when new players are coming, when the game's at a high, there's a lot of people coming into my channel. And when the game's at a lower point, like we've been kind of looking at here, then, well, we're gonna be seeing less people show up, because my channel, I mean, I feel like, first off, I'm just absolutely blessed because I feel like my channel got a lot bigger than it probably should have for the size of Galaxy Heroes. This isn't like a Fortnite, Call of Duty, some massive IP franchise video game. It's a mobile game that's not the prettiest out there. And the fact that we've been able to build such an awesome community, again, it's been an absolute privilege. So I just want to show this, though. So first off, technically, if you want to think about it, I should be almost at 400,000 subscribers, but I'm at 136,000 that were lost over the years, and this is normal. You might say, oh my gosh, that's a crazy number. There's always like this. The bigger your channel is, the more daily subscribers you're going to lose. Every day is about a net gain, basically. Every day, if you're a huge channel, it's going to be even bigger. So it's kind of one of the parts of YouTube you don't really see. You don't see how many people really unsubscribe on a daily basis, and how many it gets offset on a daily basis with people subscribing to your channel. So just think about it. If you're a smaller channel, you'll probably get less daily unsubscribes, but you'll still have a daily subscriber count that'll offset it. And then as you get bigger and bigger, you can kind of see the trend. As the channel continued to get more subs, you would see that we get more people that unsubscribe. There's always seems to be this correlation that happened. Purple line, by the way, subscribers gained. Green line, by the way, is going to be subscribers lost. But here's the funny thing. More or less, my daily subscribers lost, or this is actually looking at a monthly basis right now, but my monthly subscribers lost is actually kind of on a downturn. I'm actually losing less subscribers on a monthly basis. That's kind of in comparison to more of the early years of my channel. However, here's the biggest problem. This post-COVID world, you can see right here from November 2019 through 2021, A lot of things happen here. Number one, channel rebranding was a big thing for the channel. That's kind of what I want to do. I wanted to usher the channel to a new era. And then 2020, 2021, obviously as well, the COVID pandemic, a lot of people were watching YouTube back then. Plain and simple. 2020 June, that's when Galaxy Heroes decided to screw with my account, and that was a whole ordeal. And it got a lot of larger gaming attention out there outside the Galaxy Heroes community. So that was definitely an oddball, kind of on the fringe, a very rare situation that happened in June 2020. But post-COVID world, we're seeing that there's just not a lot of new subscribers coming to the game. And again, I think this has a lot to do with just kind of correlating with the health of Galaxy of Heroes. Even though we're on a downward trend for subscribers lost, we're also on a downward trend of new subscribers coming in here. And the problem is, again, when you only have an audience of about 300,000 that play the game, it's kind of hard to have a bigger channel than what the game has as a built-in player base. And keep in mind, this is not everyone's on YouTube. Only a fraction of people that play this game watch YouTube, go on Reddit, go on Discord, whatever the case might be. So even when you consider that in mind, I still feel like my metrics exceed what this game's capacity for a player base is. Again, pretty wild stuff that we've done here together. Again, it's been pretty awesome. But nonetheless, I just want to show that even myself, when I look at my own channel from a subscriber basis, views more or less have been kind of the same. And it's kind of what's going on in Galaxy of Heroes, where my views have been kind of basically maintained at the same level. Very similar to like Galaxy Heroes, they're kind of maintaining the current player base size that they have. And that's kind of the biggest issue I think this game's facing. It's going to be mostly in regards to getting new players into the game. I mean, for example, take a look at this right here. I mean, look at EA Sports FC. It's like 7 million new downloads. That's insane. Galaxy Heroes, I think, is struggling from a problem from new player acquisition and being able to maintain the current player base. I think that's their biggest struggle. They're trying to maintain the current player base. I don't know what the metrics are with retention, how many people are quitting the game, dropping. That's something I don't know if I could ever find that public facing data. I'm sure CG has it. And if there was something, they would notice that there's a problem with people leaving. But the problem is getting new people into this game. Again, it's almost a 10-year-old mobile game. It's kind of hard for new people to get into this game, I think. And I don't think the Lightspeed bundles are the solution for getting new players in and keeping them here. But anyways, I want to kind of bring up another thing out here. We're focusing a lot on Galaxy of Heroes, its own trajectory, what's going on in the game. I also want to put out there that there might be also something going on at large with Star Wars as a whole. This year, I don't care if you liked everything that came out this year. I think it's just from a financial, from a numbers perspective, this is the weakest year that Star Wars as a franchise has seen, in my opinion. Number one, you have Star Wars Outlaws. I am not going to give any critique on the game. I never played the game, but when I look at numbers, and even Ubisoft themselves saying that they're having softer sales than expected, which is kind of a pretty way to package up that things aren't going well for the game. So Ubisoft Star Wars Outlaws wasn't doing great, whether it's a good game or not. That's regardless of the fact that it just might not be performing well, or it isn't performing well. Also, taking a look at Star Wars Outlaws, new mobile game that came out. Is it looking like Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes? Absolutely not. So here's the iOS side of things. Let's keep scrolling. Where's Star Wars Outlaws? Oh, there's Star Wars Outlaws, a few spots away from the games that have been canned. They have 200,000 new players that came on the, I believe it was this iOS side. Yeah, iOS side, which is all right. But look at the revenue, 100,000. A lot different than Galaxy of Heroes, which again, they're having a hard time with new players, but they still got a little bit more than Star Wars Outlaws. And they made $3 million just from what's reported on iOS. Again, not taking into consideration the Android side as well as the PC side of things. So this is a situation where I would be like, yeah, this game's not doing well. Star Wars Hunters, I don't think it's going to go far. I had a lot of critiques and criticism and issues with the game. And I said, I don't know if this game's going to make it long. I don't know how long they're going to carry it on for. They're still trying to do updates, trying to do what they can. But yeah, Star Wars Outlaws, not really doing all that all that well. That over here, what do we have? This is the Android side of things here. So again, Star Wars Outlaws, they made 60,000. So they made 160,000 last month. And when you consider Star Wars is one of the most expensive IPs out there, Lucasfilm, Disney, they're going to get a big cut of the revenue. And then you have the revenue cuts from iOS and Google. And then you have, you got to pay salaries. I'm expecting just the people that are like the, the head of, the game design, the head of art and all that. They're probably getting paid 200, 300,000 a year plus benefits. And that's not even including all the other people down below. I don't know if they have any brick and mortar things, HR they got to pay for. That's not cutting it. And the fact that Star Wars, the IP's not carrying this, to where things like Words of Friends, Hit It Rich, Poker Zynga is making more money than a Star Wars game. That's not a good sign. So I'm just throwing out maybe another suggestion that maybe we're seeing, a slower trend for Galaxy of Heroes, again, doing well, especially in comparison to Star Wars Outlaws. That maybe there's something larger going on with Star Wars right now. Then the Acolyte got canceled too, of course. Numbers weren't there as well. So there might be some correlation. If Star Wars itself isn't doing it that strong, it might push over to Galaxy Heroes, or maybe the game's not going to be as strong because people might not feel that much love or connection to the franchise here. And then, of course, I want to give you one more example here and then some good stuff to end on. And don't forget that there was another game that CG made, and that was Lord of the Rings Heroes of Middle-earth. And I was saying for a while, this game's not going to make it long. So many people were like, oh, you're wrong. The game's not dying. That's when I sounded the alarms and I said, Lord of the Rings, they're in a bad situation. I mean, close to before the game was closed, they were pulling in similar numbers like that Star Wars Hunters, or they were barely getting over 100,000 in revenue combined. That's a sign the game's going to go south. So I already answered this question at the beginning, but is Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes dying in the sense that it's going to be imminent the next few months? Absolutely not. Even if we consider what's happened this year, it's a slower year. There's generally a downward trend going on. I would say that even if they continue the current course, they're not going to change anything. I easily see another 2-3 years. And we see it in game. They're adding a new character every 2 weeks. We have some degree of communication. They have semi-frequent updates on a monthly basis. Those are signs that things are going all right. The game's going to keep going. Also, some other stuff I found. It looks like recently they were hiring some people over at Capital Games. They had a bunch of game designers, 6 months contract. Here's the listing right here. It looks like the listing's no longer posted, but they're hiring people for Star Wars Galaxy Heroes. That's certainly a good sign. I mean, I'd want to assume so, unless they're losing a lot of employees and they need to quickly fill them in with other ones. Could be a different thing, but just seeing that they're at least hiring more people shows a commitment to this game. And they just released the EA app version for Star Wars Galaxy. So again, I'm not sure the game's going away anytime soon. My concern primarily is the fact that, a lot of us are feeling this, where there's people leaving. The game feels maybe a little monotonous, a little boring, a little chory. And again, the numbers are showing that, it's just not doing as well for a combination of reasons that we listed here today. So this kind of brings us back to this here. I know it's a long video, but hopefully it's kind of an interesting video for you guys here, where what's going on with the game. And I think we hit the nail on the head many times over the past while here in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. This isn't a new conversation, but it just feels like, number one, fixing the calendar so we don't have, for example, territories and conquest overlapping, spreading it out a little bit, is like the simplest thing they can do. But right now, I would say the Naboo raid, or as I've been calling it lately, the Naboo raid, has been very well loved. It's basically just hitting auto for 15 minutes, hoping they get the right run. Not very fun. Conquest, it's just a lot of chores, mostly auto, okay. Rise of the Empire, just mostly auto PvE content. Territories, I feel like Territories could be close to me enjoying it, but there's still a lot of shortcomings with Territory Wars currently. It's the same formula that hasn't been really changed since it was debuted, in 2017, whatever it was. All they did, pretty much that's still here, is they just increased the amount of defenses needed, which increased more time needed and more complications for guilds out there. And then the only thing that I really feel like that's, as I said, I believe Galaxy Heroes, the crown jewel, the thing that made it special, the thing that reinvigorated the player base, was Grand Arena. I get some people don't like it, but I feel like most do, and it's the reason for me that I want to keep playing this game. So I feel like they got to capitalize on things that are already successful instead of making it worse. Like, I feel like they've been making Grand Arena worse with Datacrons. They've been making it worse with their matchmaking, the Kyber Squish situation. Again, they could easily fix some of those things, bring seasonal power in a different light. Datacrons are not accessible to everyone. There's relic gates, and yeah, a lot of issues with that. I don't want to turn this into a Datacron video. And then, of course, trying to find a way to make the PvE content more enjoyable. I think that's the biggest thing, because when people have to do territory battles and then the conquest and all these other things that I just feel like aren't as engaging, as exciting, that's where we're going to start having problems. And why would someone want to spend money on a game that they're not having fun with? See what I'm saying? I think the last thing as well, especially this year, I just feel like this year hasn't been, besides the conquest characters, which have been amazing, I feel like this year just hasn't been as special as previous years. Like last year we had Zori and Captain Rex, amazing one banger, free-to-play accessible character that did amazing stuff. Yeah, the Punishing One is probably the best thing that came out this year for the most part, although it's just, it might not be as cool once they do their Leviathan changes potentially. But otherwise, we got a new Gungan faction, new Remnant faction. They're stretching out the Galactic Legend of Ahsoka thing. I also feel like they could do better hyping the community up like these mini puzzles that kind of tell us stuff we already knew. Not very exciting in my opinion. They should be really using puzzles as a way to get people hyped. Like when Star Killer was announced through a puzzle, that was pretty cool. You know, like, so doing stuff like that, and also other community management or engagement things out there to get people hyped and excited to play the game. You know, this kind of goes way back when, but during that golden era of Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, I felt like every character reveal that the community was getting was exciting. You know, you had the content creators, you know, they were kind of able to test out, show gameplay, that we had like 4 or 5, you know, what was like 10 people back then that was able to get people hyped about these new characters coming. They're just simple ways to get people a little bit more excited. You know, rally the troops, make them pumped to play this game. So I feel like the game could easily, you know, bounce back up. I mean, just take a look at this last thing here. You know, when we look at this, you know, look at this, you know, it looked like things were going down from 27 to 2018 to 2019, but then, you know, it went up again. It was because of COVID, was because of Galactic Legends. It's kind of hard to say exactly, but you know, although there's a downward trend, it doesn't mean it needs to continue to go down. It can easily go back up, or it can go flatline, or it can continue to go down. So a few ways to go. So Capital Games, the ball is in your court. Thank you so much for stopping by. I want to hear your thoughts on all this. I think it's a lot of fun stuff to digest here. I'm enjoying the game still. There's some things that get a little too monotonous for me in this game, as we have already described many times. But at the end of the day, I love Star Wars. I love Grand Arena. And I think just some tuning of the PvE content, the scheduling, and doing more things to engage the community, get them excited about new releases, you know, it could go a long way, and hopefully good updates down the road that, you know, people want, especially the quality of life, making ships 2 times farmable, you know, like stupid things like that. Come on, CG. Easy things. Let's make it happen. Thank you for stopping by. Whew. A lot of stuff to unpack here. There's one thing you never need to unpack, and that's how it's great to be in the Empire today.
Oh, it's great to be